Hi everyone, thank you for the introduction and first time in Southend for me as well, Nigel. I will give you some updates on Embraer, how is the company going, some updates on the E2, our product, and also some slides about the market outlook. So what do we see from our perspective for the future? So probably all of you know Embraer, but just a quick overview. We are the third biggest manufacturer in the world, 56 years in business, 24,000 employees, and also we are leader in the sector where we operate. So we have the commercial aviation, but also defense, private jet, and also the eVTOL. In terms of results, how is it going after COVID? The company is going very well. We are growing all the different divisions, as you can see, and also the backlog more than doubled in this year. So we were in a point where we got COVID and the deal with Boeing collapsed, and we had to kind of reinvent ourselves, and we've been very successful. And these are the results that you can see. With a focus on commercial aviation, this is a summary of the deals that Embraer closed in the last 12 months. So with a focus in Europe, we have SAS as a big customer, Helvetic is one of the regional airlines in Europe operating for Swiss, and then also other companies. Airline is a big regional operator in South Africa, ANA, and Virgin Latam is the first time that is stepping in this segment for South America with a big order for the E2. And lately, this was the last deal that we announced. It's Finnair, very interesting because they will replace the narrow bodies with the E2, and then in the future also the fleet of the E1, the regional. So this shows also the versatility of the airplane that can basically work both for the regional aviation but also for the narrow body sector with the right capacity. This is an overview of the current operators of the E2. And I will give you now some updates, as I mentioned, about the product. We used to have the E1, which was a pure, let's say, regional jet between 70 and 120 seats. And then we developed the E2 product. As you can see, the number of seats grew up to 146 seats. So we don't call it regional jet anymore, but we call it small narrow bodies because basically it steps in the market of the 737 and A319. And also, as you can see the range, we reach up to 3,000 nautical miles, which is basically 6-hour flights. So you will see it's not only limited now to very short flight, but these aircraft are used also for very long routes. The E2 is very versatile. Every airline has a different application. We have airlines that are using together in combination with the narrow bodies, so to serve thinner routes with higher load factor and higher margin when the regular narrow bodies would be too big. We have other routes that serve it together with turboprop, so they use maybe the turboprop for the short routes and the regional jet for the longer routes thanks to the speed of the jet. We have some airlines that have both narrow bodies and turboprop, and also some companies that they use just the Embraer fleet as a standalone. One important aspect of the E2 compared to the previous generation was that we really increased the efficiency so much. We got 20% lower fuel burn, and this is, of course, represent also 20% lower CO2 emissions. So this is very important when we talk about, for example, sustainability and the SSG goals of every airline. So when you take a regular narrow bodies, what basically was done was just a re-engine, and we went basically a step further. We have, of course, new engine, but also a new wing with the highest aspect ratio in the industry, a new wingtip, landing gear door, a new flight generation fly-by-wire that it's in-house from Embraer, new horizontal stabilizer, and aerodynamic improvements. So, as I mentioned, the fuel burn reduction compared to the previous generation is very substantial. I was talking about the sustainability, so this graph shows you on the horizontal the emissions, and then on the vertical the noise. So both day 2, day 190, 195 are at the lower part of both. In terms of noise, the airplane is chapter 14 certified already. So we have on one side the E2 trading scheme, which is of course a cost for the airlines. So having a low fuel burn, you have a lower cost. Also in thinking about the future, you know, for the SAF introduction that will slowly increase. And also in terms of noise, some airports in Europe are introducing, of course, high also noise charges for noisy airplanes. So having the airplane with chapter 14 is a key advantage for the airline. One important characteristic of the E2 is the performance for short runways and constrained airports. And this is interesting also when we talk about regional airports. Both airplanes, so even the E195 E2, the biggest one, are able to operate at every regional airport in Europe. We are also certified for London City, but also Antwerp, Bern, Florence. So this is very important because basically the airplane unlocks opportunities of new routes that in the past were not available. You see, for example, they fly from Antwerp, which is only 1,500 meters, and they fly up to Canary Island or Greece. So this is great for the airlines because they can create new opportunities that, as I mentioned in the past, were not possible. In terms of market outlook, I will provide some slides from our Embraer market outlook. This is an overview worldwide of the demand after COVID. As you can see, as we all know, there was a shift in demand, and also considering 3.9 average growth, which is now the average, basically there will be a permanent shift compared to what was the demand before COVID. So the demand in the upcoming years will be always lower after what happened during COVID. So it was 17% smaller right after COVID, but then the forecast is to grow less compared to what was forecasted in the past. So then with time, basically the difference will be higher and higher. This is very interesting because it shows the growth of the market, the blue bars, and also in orange you can see the average aircraft size. So we all know that in the past there was the boom of the low-cost carriers, so the number of markets were growing very fast with an average of 30% per year in the 2000s, and also everyone was just upgauging, so everyone was buying bigger plane. But now we reach a point where, as you can see, the number of markets don't grow anymore, and also the average aircraft size is not growing anymore because we reach a point where it's not possible to open new routes with only narrow bodies. It's important. This shows basically the importance of the small narrow body, the regional jet, to develop further connectivity, especially as we mentioned in Europe, where we reach, for example, a very high level of low-cost share, and there are not many more markets available anymore that could be operated by large aircraft. So it's not a surprise that in the recent years then, the small narrow body segment, so the regional segment where Embraer operates, is gaining traction again. So this is the number of orders in the segment. As you can see, until a few years ago, as I mentioned, there was a boom of narrow bodies and the segment was declining. But in the very recent years, many airlines are realizing how important to have this type of aircraft to serve like small airport or niche routes. So these are the number of orders, and then again, these are the key benefits. So to grow in secondary market with capacity discipline, so offering the right capacity for the right market. And this is a focus on Europe and how the small narrow body, so the blue bars, are helping the major airlines to connect the big hubs also with the small airports. This is a comparison between 2022 and 2025. So you can see that in every big hub, Amsterdam, Paris, Frankfurt, Zurich, you will see that the share of small narrow body is increasing. So it's important to keep connectivity, and then with this type of aircraft, every KLM in Amsterdam or Air France in Paris, Lufthansa in Frankfurt, they need this type of aircraft to keep connectivity, keep connecting also small cities, and especially with a high number of frequencies. This is very important to have. Usually there are like 3 or 4 daily flights. This is a final slide from the market outlook from Embraer point of view. This is a focus on the jet up to 150 seats. So where do we see from 2025 until 2024 deliveries all over the world? So we see a strong demand everywhere. Of course, Europe and North America, we see still a lot of demand. We have different products. In Europe, we have more the E2, as I mentioned. In US, we are still selling the previous generation, the smaller one. As you might know, there's a scope clause. So all the major airlines, they have the regional subsidiary, and they use it to connect from the small airport to the big hub. So we see the E2 in Europe and the rest of the world, and then the E175, E1 in US. But overall, as I mentioned, we see a strong demand for our sector. So the sector was suffering in the previous year, but after COVID and after, as I was showing the slide, we reached this point. We see a lot of demand, basically. Yeah, and that was my last slide.